In this exercise, we'll explore a couple of techniques I use to fit type around a curve or a path. Photoshop has a limited set of tools to produce any curve-fitting type, and we'll explore this first. In this image, I have a rendered type layer above a solid background. In order to gently curve type so that it can be made to curve on a surface such as a book spine or a computer monitor, I use the following tools. Choose Filter, Distort, Pinch. The pinch filter will let you introduce a slightly puckered look to an object. But you don't have a lot of control. Another filter to try for curve fitting purposes is the Spherize filter. Using the normal setting in this filter, you can experiment with the curvature you want to add to the type. And then, of course, for the times you want to produce a banner effect or a random swirl of type, check out the twirl or the wave filters. A surefire method for curving type is to use an illustration package, such as Adobe Illustrator, to produce the type on a path. The path can be drawn to match the shape. If all I wanted to do in this case was to draw text on a path that fit around this object, then I would take the Photoshop image into the illustration program and draw the final text on a path and then output the image from that program itself. If, however, you wish to add some more effects to the type in Photoshop, then you would follow this technique. In this image, I've gone ahead and used Adobe Illustrator to create the text on a path to match the curve of this plane. I selected the path in Illustrator and dragged it over on top of a blank new channel. It came over as a selection, which I filled with white. I would have liked to demonstrate this part to you, except that I ran into some conflicts with the recording software I'm using. Once you have the type rendered into a channel, you can create a new layer and fill in the type outlines anytime you want. To reposition the type outlines, load the contents of the alpha channel and use any selection tool to move the selection. I'll create a new layer first to place the type. Select a color attribute and fill, and deselect. Now you can apply any layer effect, blend mode, or filter to this rendered type, the only drawback being that the text itself is not editable anymore. and here I'm adding a slight layer mask effect to make the text appear to fade away. Probably the easiest way to produce this effect is with the help of a plugin such as Photographics by Extensys Corporation. Once installed, you access it from the Extensys menu under Filters, Photographics. I particularly like this filter because it's most Illustrator-like in terms of its features and functioning. You have access to a variety of tools that let you draw vector shapes, and then the usual fill and stroke options. To draw a path, you use the pen tool, just like in Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator. Once drawn, you can set up the path attributes in terms of color and stroke. I'll set them both to none. Now use the text tool to simply click to insert the originating point and then start typing. To change the text attributes, first select it. Then either use the text menu on top to set the font, size, and other typographic attributes, or simply use the handy palettes right inside this filter. You have access to kerning and tracking, which are very useful for this effect. And finally, change the color of the text in the Colors palette. And when you're done, click on Apply to New Layer. This renders the type onto its own layer in Photoshop. Although it's not editable text at this point, it was easy enough to create, and you still have access to all the bells and whistles of Photoshop to use on this layer.